to be very frank, working in these tier one firms, right, they make this big deal about small things. They're like, if you don't give a research, they act like the entire world is crumbling. And then you go and work with the judge and they just don't care. Advocacy is an art, right? It's something you hone with time. The more you sit with a judge, the more you get to observe all these senior counsels, you kind of realize these nuances which comes with law. I think one of the biggest misrepresentations is that you study the law and you know the law. That's not law. I think it's more about when you are in positions like that, you are in the court all the time and you realize how something so minor also is very important. Like sometimes your entire case can get dismissed because
Hi, welcome back to Stucrate's Expert Speak. Through this series, what we are trying to do at Stucrate is to present the opportunity for students and parents to listen to experts from various careers who have chosen various careers so that you have the chance to understand what the realities are um, before taking up a course or taking up a career and deciding your life path. So today we have with us Akshaya Sasikumar. She is a research law assistant at Madras High Court. Hi Akshaya, it's so awesome to have you here. I mean, I've always known you on the field at the pickleball court, and I'm super excited to have you here at the studio with us. Akshaya, tell us a little bit about yourself so students know what you do exactly.
yeah, hi Rashmi. Thank you so much for having me today. And like you said, yes, I know you as a neighbor slash a pickleball player, but it's lovely to, be here in a completely different atmosphere. So yeah, getting to what I do, again, I'm basically by position, I'm a research law assistant. It's also called a judicial clerkship, basically, which it's a program that you get to do with the Supreme Court or the High Court. I work with the High Court. I work with a judge called Justice M.S. Ramesh. We major in criminal law and service law, which is, again, we're really doing your criminal appeals. This might get a little technical, but essentially,
Please get technical.
we are doing the final judgment phase of should they continue to be in prison or should they not. And they're also, again, when it comes to service law, we're doing a lot of retirement benefits and his charges and extras and extras. I think I'll get a little more technical in the later part of the interview, but this for now, this is what I do.
So Akshaya, why why and when did you choose to take this path as a career?
So again, like when you're a child, probably around 10th grade, everyone starts asking you what you want to do. Surprisingly, I never knew what I wanted. I always knew what I didn't want. That's how I narrowed it down to
That's
law.
amazing, a
Yeah,
theory of exclusion,
eliminating. So
elimination.
yeah, I think I realized that I didn't want to do anything, not anything, but I just realized I would not be so happy with science or commerce for that matter, which is what I did in my 11th and 12th grade. So, post that, I realized that now I know the major two things I do not want. Then now I can like narrow it down to business and humanities. I think when you grow up with my father was a central government officer, there's something that you're related to doing something for the society all the time. It's always in the back of your mind because you've seen the struggles of someone who wanted to make a change in the society, or the fact that, when you're a child who comes up in a background like that. So I thought law would give me the kind of exposure to, create a change in the society. Especially all these things are when you're a kid, you're like, I'm going to grow up and like make all these big changes. So all of this definitely like affected my choice. That's how I narrowed it down to law. So yeah, that's probably 12th, 10th to 12th grade of me deciding what to do was how I ended up in law.
And what are the steps you chose? Like after your 12th standard, how did you choose your undergraduate course?
by 10th grade, I was like 99% sure that I'm going to do law. So I started looking for, your entrance exams. So one major entrance exam that you will be writing is CLAT. It's called the Common Law Admission Test, which is for the NLUs, the National Law Universities. There are a bunch of NLUs across the country, and this is like the only qualifying exam. So unlike some courses, your 12th grade marks do not matter at all. I mean, you need to pass, you can't fail, but as long as you pass, it's fine. So then it's entirely this admission test, which basically comprises of majorly 5 sections. So it's legal reasoning, it's logical reasoning, GK, math, and English. So I think I enrolled in courses by like 11th half term
For CLAT.
for CLAT. Yeah. So it was a 2-year course almost. So they're essentially taking you slowly through all these sections. And even though they're basic concepts like, I mean, math and all, they say it's your 10th grade math, but it's not that everyone was good at math, right? So you need like some extra courses to actually help you through that math. And as far as legal reasoning is concerned, that's the first time I'm being like, because you actually they say out there that it's just basic questions, but I feel like unless and until I went to those courses, there's no way I could have cracked those questions, because for the first time in your life you're listening to words like the law of torts, or constitutional law again in school is taught in terms of policy, right? Like you just talk about your fundamental rights, but you don't talk about the case laws which came up for fundamental rights. So I think the course that I joined really, really helped me to, get a structure of what they really wanted in the admission test. So other than CLAT, you also have your major universities. So if you Google top 10 universities, the only things, the universities that come up are not going to be NLUs. They're also going to be private universities, which are also going to be on top. So they have their own individual tests. So for instance, Jindal Global University has something called LSAT. I went to Symbiosis University, which had SLAT. So as an aspiring student, your idea should be to write all the tests available. Do not be like, I mean, even if you are a genius and you're scoring like a 200 on a 200 on your mocks for CLAT, definitely do give other tests as well. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the major things that you have to do as a student to get into the top universities.
And at what point of your undergraduation did you choose this area of study, which is criminal research? And is that what you chose, criminal research, or is it how did you choose your post graduation?
So I have the interesting thing about law is, unlike engineering or medicine for that matter, you don't get to pick a specialization in your UG. Probably like MBBS again, right? So because the reason being, your bar council, your bar exam is something all of us will write. Almost 99.9% of the law students are definitely going to write their bar exam. And in the bar exam, you don't get to have a specialization. So you're majorly dealing with all the laws. The question paper is going to have even specializations like income tax and stuff like that. So when you are a law student, you can either, pick a 5-degree course, which is what I did. It's an honors program of BA LLB. Or if you're someone who did a UG course in, let's say, a 3-year course, then you go for your PG. So, yeah, I mean, coming back to, how I ended up in criminal law, it's, like I said, it's not like I chose to be in criminal law or anything like that. So I wouldn't say a drawback about my position is you work with a judge. So the minute that he gets a portfolio, any portfolio that it can be, you work under him. That's how I ended up in criminal law right now. So the portfolio changes every 3 months. Even the judge doesn't get to pick on which subject matter he sits. This is for obvious reasons that, sometimes criminal law gets extremely tough for the judge as well, especially if you look at lower court judges. Let's say they are in those child sex offense codes and stuff. It gets very
It will take an emotional
brutal.
toll.
Yeah, it gets extremely brutal for the judge. So as far as high court is concerned, you are doing a 3-month change. And so that's how right now I'm in criminal law. There's no specialization which led me here. It's more about keeping your options as open as possible.
And what do students need to keep in mind, while choosing an area of specialization? If your classmates and all must have chosen some specializations, what are the realities of various types of laws, in terms of the hours of work that you put in?
See, one thing that I have to be very honest with you is law is extremely brutal. Like it's not what they show you in the TV shows where like, it's these high-rise buildings, you just wear those clothes and you get like coffees. That's not the reality. When you're choosing a special, I think this is how an ideal law student's career, if they're picking a 5-year course, should look like. Your first 2 years, you're in the lowest courts possible. You're in district courts, you're in your sessions court, you're just trying to get a feel of the law. And then in your third year, once, if again, this is not like a set in the stone rule or anything, you feel like you are being, one niche picks your interest. Let's say it's corporate law or litigation. So, broadly, how we differentiate it is between litigation and corporate. Litigation is basically when you go to court every single day. You're in advocacy, you are talking to the judge, you're making like briefs for the judge and all these things. Corporate law is mergers and acquisitions and contracts and regulatory compliances and stuff. So, ideally, in your third year, you should have an idea of which side of this you want to lean on. Again, it can change in your fifth year, or it can also change post. I know way too many lawyers who've been litigating lawyers who went back to corporate. So it's not like, again, a set in the stone. But I would say ideally by a
But there's no prerequisite, as in like
no,
corporates
there
don't
is no,
expect that
no,
you
no,
have
no.
to have worked in this and then.
No, I mean, definitely it changes from company to company, but I think that's everywhere, right? Like people who, let's say, for instance, I want a consultant job or like an advertising job. All the top firms are going to expect me to have some kind of experience, but there's going to be some firm who will still take me in, right? So that is going to be there, but again, like ideally, I think by a third year, if you figure this out, you can plan your courses like that. So what happens in most of the universities around your fourth and fifth year is they start giving you electives. So if you're someone who is passionate about for this, for instance, my friend was extremely passionate about international law. That's something that's you don't usually do it, right? But all his electives were towards international law. He took international crime, he took international humanitarian law, so that he got that idea he could move with the groove, and now he's doing his BCL, which is his master's in law in Oxford. So let's say, for instance, someone has decided by third year that they want to be in corporate law. Then you start picking courses like IPR and intellectual property rights, or you pick something like competition. Again, by your third year, if you've clear with this, I think your fourth and your fifth year, you can then start focusing on even more niches. So there's even teams within corporate law, such as gaming laws, or we have competition law experts. Again, within this, you can again pick to go. Do you want to do advocacy in competition law, which would essentially be you going to tribunals and then the high courts, or do you want to again sit in regulatory part of competition law? So fourth and fifth year can be, like picking your niche, like your niche is niche. But again, like I said, it's not a hard and fast rule. For that matter, even I did not decide whether I wanted to be in litigation or corporate until my fifth year, because everything has its pros and cons, right? So, yeah, you can always jumble, but an ideal thing I would say is first 2 years you should do it with your lower courts. Third year you pick one, and fourth and fifth year you start doing your niche. So, for instance, when they come for placements, and let's say you're sitting for a corporate job interview, if you show them like a bunch of litigation internships, they're going to be like, then why should I hire you, right? So especially when these companies come, like let's say for instance your major companies like Flipkart or ICICI Bank come down, and you're just giving them like, I worked on criminal law all 5 years. They're not going to pick you, because why would they pick you? They're not there to like sit and teach you, right? So if you're going to instead give them even 3 top internships on your CV, which says that in a corporate firm, I've done banking and finance, banking and finance, and banking and finance. They're essentially going to drill you on questions relating to that, and you get the job, right? So I think by your fourth year, if you pick the niche and you start having internships, it's going to be easier when you look for a job.
Your choices have led you to work with the judge under whom you're practicing right now, which I think would put you in a very privileged position, right? Which will give you a lot of improved your scope for your future. But that would have happened through certain choices that you made. How did you land this position with the said judge?
That's actually an interesting story. So I did not even know this position or this opportunity existed until like fifth year, like almost 3 months before my graduation. I thought I was just going to join a firm or an office, do litigation or corporate for that matter. Since I couldn't decide which one I wanted till my fifth year, I just thought I'll go to as many various internships as possible. So if you look at my CV, it's going to be a mix of litigation in the top firms and as well as corporate in the top firms. And I've done a mix of work in criminal, corporate, competition, and etc. So that's how in January I ended up in this internship. Like July, I'm graduating, and January I ended up is when I realized this position even exists, which is very sad because I think even today a lot of people don't know that something called research assistantship exists. It's for 2 years. It's actually a decent enough pay. And like you said, working for a judge is a very privileged part because imagine you're a first generation lawyer. Again, I'm not talking about the second and the third, but when you're a first generation lawyer, you already have like the ins with a Supreme Court or a High Court judge. And all the lawyers, and again, the top lawyers are always going to come to the High Courts and Supreme Courts. They're constantly seeing you in front of the judge, which actually pushes your career a bit. Like 1 year after this, when you come out, imagine you're working even in the top law office, right? You only get one side of the story. But when you work with a judge, you get both the sides. You have like every senior counsel's brief in front of you. You have every senior counsel's argument in front of you. And it's like they're paying you to sit and listen to, I mean, of course, you work on them, but they're paying you to sit and listen to all these like big lawyers saying what they're saying. And I
It's
think
like an executive MBA on the job.
honestly, yeah, because you finally understand working with a judge, you understand what the judge wants. Because to be very frank, working in these tier one firms, right, they make this big deal about small things. They're like, if you don't give a research, they act like the entire world is crumbling. And then you go and work with a judge and they just don't care. They're like, you know what, the law is different. They are so sure of the law. They don't care about all these small changes and stuff like that. And you also realize how advocacy is an art, right? It's something you hone with time. The more you sit with a judge, the more you get to observe all these senior counsels. You kind of realize these nuances which comes with law. It's people, I think one of the biggest misrepresentations is that you study the law and you know the law. That's not law. I think it's more about soft skills. It's about like, not letting your ego speak, not being like, you know what, I'm from this university, you have to listen to me. That's not going to work. You get to see how the biggest senior counsel is literally like, my lords, please do this for me. That's I think that's a skill that you really learn when you are in places like this where you're finally like, okay, even for something as simple, not it might not be arguments, but there are different stages in a trial, right? It's like one such thing is something called condonation of delay, where if you file a petition later, the court needs to give you time to let you go ahead with it because you have a delay. So that's a very small thing. Usually 99% of the time only the juniors come here like, my lords, just give me a date. And most of the judges do give you that. But then when you are in positions like that, you are in the court all the time and you realize how something so minor also is very important. Like sometimes your entire case can get dismissed because the junior wasn't prepared with the facts. I don't think this is something I would have learned probably 3 or 4 years of me being in an advocate office. You're learning it within the first 6 months of being in this position. So yeah, these days I think like it really does set you like a good 3 years forward.
Ahead.
Yeah, 3 years ahead when you are, constantly with the judge all the time.
Wow. I mean, I never thought about law, but yeah, I never thought about these things. It's amazing. You touched upon the salary part of it. So what do a law students can expect to earn when they start their career? Or if you can give me a range.
Yeah, so as far as tier one firms are concerned, which is like your top 5 or 6 to 10 firms in the country, you can expect a salary of 16 to 18 lakhs. which is a good package for starting. But you also need to expect brutal and grueling hours. Not everyone, I wouldn't say everyone, and I wouldn't say every day. So that's how I started it, right? Law is actually a brutal field. You need to expect to give at least 10 to 15 years of every single day of your life to that. And so, again, coming back, tier one, you get somewhere around 16 to 18. Tier 2, 12 to 14. This again majorly is corporate law. Now, if you're going to come down to litigation, that's the tricky part. You can just get somewhere around 10 to 20,000 a month, and you're expected to work 16 hours a day. And it's not just, for instance, it's not like this. I wake up today and I go to High Court. It's not like that. I could be asked to travel 1.5 hours from here. I could be asked to travel to a court that is in another state. You are challenged with language. Let's say tomorrow I decide, now I'm in Chennai, I decide to move to Bangalore. They're going to obviously expect you to speak Kannada in the lower courts, which I'm not going to be able to do so. Sometimes it so happens that people have actually won cases because, again, I'm not like trying to say judiciary is bad or anything, but sometimes when you put your arguments from your mother tongue, it actually makes a difference. So, litigation, again, like that, with the kind of salary that you are making, you are going to be asked to do a lot more. So, I think if any student, I'm not like trying to discourage any students, but if you're really coming from a background where you don't have a support and or people are dependent on you, again, not to discourage, but a reality check would be for you to actually think about choosing litigation, because for the first 3 years you're really not making any money. And I mean, sure, the exceptions exist where, like, you start magically finding clients and you like start making money, which doesn't happen like that, because it's again, it's not a set thing, right? Like, when you win a case, you might get the money, something like that.
So would it be fair to assume that a lot of girls who choose litigation, eventually give up on their career at some point because
Not
of the challenge?
really. I would say that a lot of women are coming up now, like comparatively to probably even 5 or 6 years before. It's a very tough career for both the genders. But I think as far as you are aware of what you're getting into, it shouldn't be a big deal. I mean, definitely, yeah. I'm not saying that women wouldn't at the end of the day struggle a little more, because like your late nights, and let's say you're in criminal law, there's going to be calls you get at 3 in the morning where you have to go and bail someone out. It's probably not going to be easy to do as a woman, to just like go to a shady police station at like 3 in the morning. That also doesn't mean that you can't choose litigation as a whole. If you're someone who can financially support yourself and you have the passion. I've seen way too many women with too much passion, too much of I want to be a litigator. Like, even if things get really difficult, actually challenging, it's at the end of the day, it's about passion and how you navigate through it.
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
That's a good question. So this research assistantship essentially ends. It's a 2-year program, so it would end this year. Post this, I do see myself pivoting to corporate law, a better position, a managerial position, somewhere around 4 years. But yeah, the plan is to pivot to commercial law because, again, personally, I've never been a fan of, not that I wouldn't love advocacy, but I do enjoy the perks of, having a little bit of stability. Like I said, you get to go to only one office. You don't have to like move around the city. You don't know
Yeah.
like what's going to
I
happen.
mean, yeah, that does make a lot of difference. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
and
reality, right?
True, and you have like a work from home privilege. Not everybody, some do. And you at least have the option as a corporate lawyer. And I think mostly I've enjoyed doing transactional and regulatory work more than, civil law, because civil law, again, you're like starting from like 1960s. There'll be this big document you open and you're just like coughing for like the first 45
Okay.
minutes.
It's exhausting to hear. If you had the opportunity to go back in time 5 years before, what would you do differently?
I think it's a lot about seeking opportunities and taking all the opportunities. I think when I went to Symbiosis, that was the first time I'm with an all India mixed crowd, right? And it's one of the top universities. So everyone there was not just good at academics, they were also like national level players and gymnasts and musicians. Like, I don't know, they were all really talented and stuff like. So there were a lot of times where I'm not good at it before even I took up that opportunity, especially when it came to placements. I was like, you know what, I'm not like a gold medalist or something, so all these tier one firms are not going to take me, which turned out to be completely wrong. They did not care about your GPA. They did not care about even the fact that you did not have these great internships at these fancy firms. As long as you gave a CV and in that 30-minute interview, you were convincing enough that I knew decently enough about corporate law. Like, for instance, most of the firms that come for interviews are corporate because litigation, they're not going to come for interview. It's more like you develop it through your internships and they are like, just join us and something like that. So, as far as corporate is concerned, if in that 30 or 45 minutes you're able to convince the partner that they can teach you or you will understand what they're saying, then that's all that matters. So if I could go back 5 years, I just be like, it's you're just learning. Just focus on learning, not becoming a master in the first day.
Enjoy the process of learning.
True.
Don't keep on pursuing the goal.
True. And I think like one of the famous lawyers has said that once you're a student of law, you're always a student of law. So even the judge is learning. I've seen because all these judges are mostly like civil background or criminal background, when you give them very nuanced, let's say corporate, there's something called insolvency bankruptcy code. They're like, what the hell is this? So even they are learning, so all of us are learning. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that you do is like, oh, but I should know this, which is impossible. So I think I would want to have taken all the opportunities more as a learning experience than even being good at it. Just try and get an experience out of it. That's it.
Any, before we wind up, what would you like to tell aspiring law students and parents who are looking to support their kids who want to take up law?
One thing again is come with an open mind, as in two things. Law is going to be brutal. You're not going to have this 9 to 5 job. You're not going to have a 9 to 7 job. You're going to get calls at 11:30 in the night and 3:30 in the night. If there is a deal that is closing, they will expect you to sit till you finish it, which can sometimes be even the next morning. Just go home, you shower and come back. Especially if you're taking litigation, it really does not matter if you went home at 5 in the morning, because at 10 court starts and at 10:30 your case will come up, and if it gets lost, then you cannot just call up your client and be like, I slept off. So one thing is you really need to understand that if you're choosing this, I mean, again, like if you don't want to do this, you can always find a more calmer job. For instance, if you take up in-house counsels, you're much more at a 10 to 8 lifestyle. But majority, that is 90% of anything that you choose law-wise, is going to be a little difficult. So unless and until you're ready for the grind, then do reconsider your choices. Don't expect, like all these shows that essentially portray this high-flying high-rise buildings and all of that. You don't have to get affected by them. Sure, I mean, like your corporate firms are in places like South Bombay where it does look like that. But I've seen that most of the people actually want to pick corporate law because of that lifestyle. I think that's very wrong. That's a wrong way to look at law as a whole, or move away from litigation, because litigation again is equally extremely exciting. Advocacy is, I mean, at the end of the day, anyone who wanted to be an advocate wants to stand in front of a judge, right? Like that's one of the reasons you would pick law. But then throughout law school, and these law schools also, they want to show that like students have been placed in all these internships. So because of that, they also like subconsciously promote this corporate culture, which I think is something that you need to break apart. Like always keep, like follow your heart. You feel like, you have more fun being an advocate, you like coming in front of the court, do it. And I think the last one would be a very like a Gen Z advice is, if a 50 or a 60-year-old, any lawyer's interview that you see there, like you have to give everything and work. I think that's also not necessary. Like always make sure that you're in a good office, an office that mentors you, doesn't look at you like some employee. They need to make sure that there's a good mentor there. You feel like at any point your respect is being threatened or you're not being treated well, walk away. Just, it's not the end of the thing. There are going to be your seniors who just like, this is a big opportunity. Where will you go and all of that? That's not true. You can always find another job. This is a kind of a profession where you don't even demand respect, you command it. So I think that's something that any fresh graduate, even if you're doing your internships, just have your boundaries set. Do your job, do it well. But if you feel like, people are crossing that set boundary, it's always all right to walk away.
Nice. I mean, I love this conversation, Akshaya. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
here. And
Thank you so much.
I'll see you outside the studio soon.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much.